तत्परं पर्यय विद्महे ज्ञानलिङ्गेश्वराय धीमहि तन्नो गुरुः प्रचोदयात्। ओम योग महर्षि डॉक्टर स्वामी गीतानंद गिरी गुरु महाराज की जय। नमस्ते, वणक्कम, स्वागतम, नमस्कारम, bonjour, buongiorno, buonasera, buonanotte. We're here on our 49th episode of Scintillating Saturdays. 49th week non-stop that we have been able to come together on Saturdays. Quite astonishing. And today I felt the need to share something about the Rama Nama, which is known as the Taraka Mantra. One of the simplest ways to connect to the divinity is often sung in this way. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jaya Jaya Ram Om. Shri Ram, Jaya 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 Ram, Jaya Jaya Ram Om. Jaya Jaya Ram Om. Jaya Jaya Ram Om. It is said that the repetition of the Taraka Mantra, Rama, is so powerful that the utterance of Rama, the Taraka Mantra, 3 times. 3, you heard me right. Rama, Rama, Rama. Uttering it 3 times. That's why we had Shri Ram, Jaya Jaya Ram Om. It is said if you utter it just 3 times, it is equivalent in potency to chanting 1,000 names of the divine. In our culture, a timeless culture, Sanatana Dharma, we have an important scripture called Vishnu Sahasranam. The Vishnu Sahasranam has 1,000 names for Lord Vishnu. We have for all deities. Every deity has thousands of names. As my dear Papanasan Sivan, and I'll be quoting him a lot today, one of the great composers of Tamil culture. We call him the Tamil Tyagaya. Brahma Shri Papanasan Sivan In one of his compositions, Ma Ramanan, he says, Ayiram Peyar Ayiram Peyaral Aripinum, Ayiram Urumayanum. You may be called by thousands of names, and you may have thousands of forms, but that doesn't matter. Your compassion is even greater than one of a mother for the child. Ayiram Peyaral Aripinum, Ayiram Urumayanum, Ayiram. Ayiram in Tamil is 1,000. Ayiram Peyaral Aripinum, Ayiram Uruma. Uru is form. Ayiram Urumayanum, Uyarthayin Megudayal, Baran Padam Tanjam Enbavare Anjal Entrarulum. Your compassion is infinitely greater than even a mother's compassion for the child. Thousands of names, thousands of forms, but you are one. People get very confused. They think Hindus are polytheists. They forget that we are Om theists. Om is everything. It is this one seen in multiple forms. We understand that everyone can be divine. Everything can be divine because the divine percolates everyone and everything. So the divine is one, but it appears in multiple forms. So thousands of names are thousands of qualities of the divine. Sahasranama of Vishnu. Now, it takes a long time to chant it. And many people in India chant it in the morning. M.S. Subbalakshmi's rendition is played all over. Again and again you hear it. And people chant it. But it is said, well, if you don't have time to do 1,000 name chanting of the divine, what can you do? What is the shortcut? And it's said, we haven't asked it. Goddess Parvati asks Lord Shiva. Goddess Parvati asks Shiva, Oh Lord, there are these 1,000 names for Vishnu. If I don't have time, if I'm not able to do it, what can the person do? And he immediately tells her, Shri Rama Rama Rameti Rame Rame Manorame Sahasranama Tattulyam Rama Nama Bhavanani Shri Rama Rama Rameti Rame Rame Manorame Sahasranama Tattulyam Rama Nama Bhavanani. The Tattulyam, the potency of Sahasranama Tattulyam, of thousands of names, can be found if you repeat 3 times. Shri Rama Rama Rameti, Shri Rama 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 Iti, Shri Rama Rama Rameti, Rame Rame Manorame. Because the mind gets tranquilized. The mind attains the Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Shri Rama Rama Rameti Rame Rame Manorame Sahasranama Tattulyam Rama Nama Bhavanani. That is the power. And this has been given by Lord Shiva to Parvati. Parvati is actually underestimated. She is the student of Lord Shiva, not just the wife. And it is said that the secrets of yoga were given by Shiva to Parvati. This is why all those modern yogi idiots and yoga scholars who run around saying, women were kept away from yoga, women were kept away from yoga. You idiots, I have no other word for them. Why don't you go and look at the original concept? Shiva decided to teach it to Parvati. And this is why even in Kamli Swami Madam, after Swamaji's Samadhi and I was in medical school, Amma used to do the puja for the lingam, and many people, oh, a woman is doing puja for the lingam. People get so caught up with the physical form, they forget that we are just a physical form of a spirit, an Atma that doesn't have gender. The Atma is gender neutral. You don't have male soul and female soul, I'm sorry. The Atma is gender neutral. And people get so confused about this. The original teachings, were given. The original teachings were given by Shiva to goddess Parvati. Now this Rama Nama, because often you find people, do you put your 3 lines this way, which is Shiva, or this way, which is Vishnu? Our people get so fanatical. 3 lines going this way and 3 lines going this way, and they want to kill each other. Is there in all countries, all cultures, all religions. Protestants and Catholics, think about it and you get the idea. Again and again in our culture, there have been people who have tried to bring both together. And that is why, who is talking about the Rama Nama as Taraka Mantra? Lord Tarakeshwar himself. Lord Shiva is called Taraka Ishwar. Tarakeshwar is talking about Taraka Nama, which is Rama Nama. What a beautiful bridge between Shaivism and Vaishnavism that has been there. I always say it is like the fans here of 2 actors, Kamal Haasan and Rajini. They'll keep on fighting. Kamal and Rajini are good friends. Or, Ronaldo and Messi. Those 2 guys have no issues with each other, but the fans, oh my God, they'll kill each other for it. Same thing happens in all religions, all countries, all nationalities. We have the same issue always. So one of the derivators, one of the way the Rama Nama is derived, is said to be from the 8 syllables of Vishnu and the 5 syllables of Shiva. So you have the Ashta Akshara. Om Namo Narayanaya is for Vishnu. And the Panchakshara, Om Namah Shivaya, for Shiva. So it is said that Om Namo Narayanaya, that Ra from Narayanaya, because if you take that Ra out, everything's gone. It collapses. It's like the key sound. Om Namo Narayanaya. That Ra is taken. Om Namah Shivaya. Nama. That Ma is the key sound in the Panchakshara. Namah Shivaya. So Ra Ma. Namo Narayanaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Rama. Rama. And that the Rama as a mantra, as a Taraka Mantra, combines the essence of the Ashta Akshara and the Panchakshara. A very beautiful perspective in my opinion. Another perspective of the 2 syllables, Ra, Ma, is that the Ra is embodying the solar energy, the energy of the sun. Ra is the name of the sun god in, I believe, the Egyptian culture also, civilization. Ma refers to the moon. So the sun and moon being balanced in Rama Nama, no wonder Lord Rama in human form was called Ramachandra. Ramachandra Murti. Sri Ramachandra Murti. Ra as the solar energy, Ma as the lunar energy, and Rama, the conglomeration of Ra and Ma, is a state of balance. This is why Lord Rama, who is the avatar, the Maha Avatar of Mahavishnu, the avatar in human form, he is the highest of the humanity. Purusha Uttama, Purushottama. Uttama means the highest of the Purusha, of the manifest human beings. Purushottama he is called. He is also called Maryada Purusha or Maryada Purushottama as the role model. And when you look at Rama's life, his adherence to Dharma at any cost is an example. His adherence to Dharma in the face of all adversity. The value system of the Ramayana is amazing. When you look at the value system of Ramayana, it is amazing. You will find that even Ravana abducts Sita, Ma Sita Devi, but he cannot touch her. By the time it comes to Mahabharata, Draupadi's clothes are being pulled off by the Kauravas, Dushasana, Duryodhana, and the whole group. Dushasana is the main one who's doing it. So here, in the Ramayana time, what happens? Ravana abducts Sita, but he cannot even touch her. So keeps her in the Ashokavana, where Lord Hanuman finds her. But in the Mahabharata, Draupadi is being disrobed in the Hastinapura open assembly. That is the degradation of human values even between Ramayana and Mahabharata times, between Rama and Krishna. So Rama implies a state of balance, equanimity, samatvam, sthita prajna. That is brought out in the Bhagavad Gita. A person endowed with sthita prajna, they are in a steady state of wisdom. They are in a state of equipoise. And they have an equally balanced response to everything, samabhava. Even when Rama is killing Ravana, you will see a beautiful smile on his face. He is in a state of equanimity, no hatred. That is the power of the Rama Nama. Now this Rama Nama, which is the Taraka Mantra, I have been saying Taraka, you say, what is Taraka? Taraka is a raft. It is a boat. It is like the ferry that you find in the Greek stories, in the afterlife. Tara is also the name of the star. When we sing, Angikam Bhuvanam Yasya, Vachikam Sarva Vangmayam, Aharyam Chandra Taradi, all the stars. Tara refers to that which enables you to transcend in your journey. That which is the medium through which you can transcend everything. The mantra of transcendence. Now, of course, in our culture, it is believed when you die, you have an opportunity for transcendence. Whether you make it or not, well, lot of factors. Terms and conditions apply. When you die, when you leave the body, when you leave the mortal coil, there's an opportunity for transcendence. Star, terms and conditions apply, depending on what has gone on before you die. See, when we leave the body, we have an opportunity to move from the material to the non-material. From the transient to the eternal. From the anitya to the nitya. From the asuchi to the suchi. From the avidya to the jnana. We have an opportunity for it when we die. And that is why the Taraka Mantra is said to be the mantra that is recited into the ears of the people dying in Kashi. Kashi Vishwanatha, Lord Shiva, Tarakeshwar. It is said those who die in Kashi, this is why everybody wants to go to Kashi to die. Kashi, Varanasi, Benares, 3 names for the same place. In Kashi it is said if you die, they say in Kashi if you die you have mukti. If you are born in Thiruvarur, you have mukti. Then they say if you think, I believe it is Chidambaram, if you think of Chidambaram, you get mukti. There are these beautiful statements in our culture. So if you die in Kashi, you get mukti. Why? Because Lord Shiva himself will recite into the dying person's ear the Taraka Mantra, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Om. You remember? Shri Rama Rama Rameti Rame Rame Manorame. Lord Shiva, Tarakeshwar, the Ishvara of Taraka. Tarakeshwar will recite the Taraka Mantra. That is why in our culture when people were towards the end of their life, they used to make a yatra to Kashi and they would say bye to everyone. They used to say bye to everyone and go to Kashi, and then you didn't expect them to come back if they went to Kashi. Kashi poitan, say munji pochu. There's also a funny part that in Indian marriages, the groom is supposed to go on a Kashi Yatra. He wants to go for studies, the Brahmacharya, and then the father-in-law has to go and catch him and bring him to get him to say, marry my daughter and become a householder. There's also that funny part in Indian marriages, Kashi Yatra. In the morning it is done. I always wonder what will happen if the guy says, no, I prefer to go to Kashi and not get married. What would happen that day? Anyway, in Kashi, the Taraka Mantra. Now people say you have to go to Kashi. Wherever you are can be Kashi. Wherever you are can be Kashi. Wherever you are can be where Shiva is, if your being is auspicious. So it's not the physical location of Kashi, it is a state of Kashi, is what I like there. Rama. So it is said that there is actually a Rama Rahasya Upanishad, where Lord Hanuman is said to have given lot of secrets, the Rahasya of the Rama Nama. And it is said, Rama as one unit represents the Brahman itself, a cosmic being, Rama. But when you split it into two components, Ra and Ma, it becomes the medium for emancipation. It becomes the tool to assist you to transcend everything. And what is yoga all about? Transcendence. Ultimately, yoga is all about transcendence. And this is why the Taraka Mantra, Taraka Nama of Ra and Ma is so powerful. A composition by Brahmashri Papanasan Sivan, the Tamil Tyagaya, whose compositions have influenced me a lot. And most of my compositions are modeled on his style. There's a beautiful composition taught to be my guru, Ranganathan sir, Sri Rangam Ranganathan sir, which goes, Shri Rama Nama Bhajanai se maname, Shri Rama Nama Bhajanai se maname. O mindful heart and heartful mind, sing the praises of Shri Rama Nama Bhajanai. Bhajikka vendiyadu, to bhajippadu, to sing the praises. Shri Rama Nama Bhajanai se maname, Shivala Om Iha para sugam tarom. Shri Rama Nama Bhajanai se maname, Shivala Om Iha para sugam tarom. Shri. It gives the unparalleled sukha. Iga para sukam taro, Shri Rama Nama Bhajanai se. And then it says, Nirasadai Kailayisan Gangai Nirasadai. In his logs, he has the Ganga, Ma Ganga. Nirasadai Kailayisan Mukti Nevi Idu Vendre Annai Kadil Odiya. He has, in Goddess Parvati's ear, given this secret. This is the secret of attaining mukti, liberation, emancipation. Nirasadai Kailayisan Mukti Nevi Idu Vendre Annai Kadil Odiya, Shri Rama Nama Bhajanai se. And then he goes on, Kama Madhi Ahupagayum Mariyum. Kama and all the other 6 enemies, the Shatrupus, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya, will be destroyed. Kamamadhi ahupagayum mariyum kavalai noigal tane maraindoriyum. All your troubles, all the diseases on the own will be dissipated. Kamamadhi ahupagayum mariyum kavalai noigal tane maraindoriyum. Ramadasan navile koluviyoku. Ramadasan navile koluviyokum. Raghupadin Vedasara Taraka Shri Rama Nama. Vedasara, the essence of the Vedas, the essence, Vedasara, the essence of the Vedas which is found in the Taraka Shri Rama Nama. What a beautiful methodology. What a beautiful opportunity. Contemplate the twin sounds of Ra and Ma, making up the oneness, the two becoming one. Ra plus Ma becoming Rama. Now the power of this Rama Nama has been found in different ways, and one is through the story of Valmiki. Valmiki is the Adi Kavi. He is the one who has given us the Ramayana. And originally Valmiki was a highway robber. Now there are other versions that like to give a backstory to it, but let's keep the simple story. Valmiki, a highway robber, is robbing people to keep his home fires burning. Now there are two versions. One is the Sapta Rishis come by, another version is Narada comes by. And there are multiple versions in Indian culture, which is the beauty of the culture. Diversity is the beauty. So let us say Narada comes by. This is a popular version, is Narada. There's also the Sapta Rishi version. And Ratnakara. Ratna is jewel, Kara is to hold. So basically a guy who used to pluck away jewels from everybody. Ratnakara. So Ratnakara wants to rob Narada. And Narada says, what do I have? Nothing. I'm running around singing Narayana Hari, Govinda Hari. That's all. And he asks Ratnakara, he says, why are you robbing? You know that this is adharma. You know this is wrong. Why are you doing it? You are killing for the sake of robbing. You are robbing and stealing and plundering. He says, I am keeping my family fed. Narada says, do you know there's a lot of papa, demerit, sin with it? He says, well, yes. He says, do you think your family members for whom you are doing all of this will share that sin? He says, of course. Narada says, well, I'll stay here. I'm on my word of integrity. I'll stay here. You just ask your family and come. So Ratnakara goes back to ask his family, and he says, you know, you're always sharing the spoils or whatever I bring. Won't you also share the papa, the negative demerit, the sin? And they say, of course not. That's your boogeyman. You have to take care of your papa. We are just, you are giving us, we are happy. Why should we take your papa? In this moment is that moment of realization for Ratnakara. He goes back to Narada, falls at his feet and says, you have awakened me. Please tell me the way back to Dharma. How can I get rid of all the sins, all the evil that is there, all that papa? And Narada says, well, there is a way. There is the Taraka Mantra. But he says there are two problems. And one version says the name of the divine shouldn't be given in Mantra Diksha, because Narada is giving Mantra Diksha to Ratnakara. People often forget this. It is not just he told him. It is Mantra Diksha. So how can you give Mantra Diksha to a dacoit? How can you give to someone who is having so much of papa? This is one perspective. The second perspective is saying that because Ratnakara was so used to killing, death, Narada says, well, start chanting Mara. Mara. Now, Mara means death or to kill. Mar do unko. In Hindi they say Mar do, which means kill him. Beat him, kill him. Marana, to die. So, Mara implies death and the process. Now, Ratnakara is used to death, he is used to killing, he is used to violence. He is not used to peace and tranquility. He is not used to balance. He is in a state of imbalance and has to move from imbalance to balance. And so Narada says, please chant Ma-ra. This is your mantra. He doesn't tell him chant Rama, he says chant Ma-ra. And so Ratnakara sits down and starts chanting Mara, 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 Mara. And what happens? The Mara becomes Rama. The transformation from the mortality to the immortality, from a state of imbalance, which is Mara, to Rama, which is a state of balance. And this is where the transformation occurs, and Ratnakara keeps repeating it for years and years and years. As he's repeating, he is in a state of stillness. He's gone into a state of Sahaja Samadhi, Purna Samadhi. And the anthill is built around him because he is not moving. He's in a forest. And the roadside of the forest, you'll have a lot of anthills. And this anthill forms and he's still inside it. And many years later, Narada comes back and he hears the Rama Nama. Now it's not Mara anymore. Mara has become Rama. And out of the anthill he says, Valmiki, arise. Valmiki means an anthill. And so Ratnakara, who was in a state of imbalanced violence, is transformed. The power of transformation into Valmiki. From adharma to dharma. That is the power of the Rama Nama. That is why Lord Rama was the embodiment of dharma. And then, of course, Valmiki ends up composing the Ramayana. Now, there's a slight difference between Valmiki's version of Rama, because for Valmiki, Rama is very much a human being. But when it comes into the Tamil culture and Kamban, Deva Mahakavi, Kamban, when he gives the Tamil version of the Ramayana, Kamba Ramayanam, based on Valmiki's Ramayana, Kamban now starts to perceive more in the Bhakti mode. Valmiki was more in the Jnana mode, Jnana Yoga mode. Kamban is more in the Bhakti Yoga mode. And he perceives Rama as the divine, the incarnation of the divine. And he keeps on at many points telling us that. And when Kamban talks about this Rama Nama, there's a beautiful verse from the Kamba Ramayana, which tells us, Nanmayum Selvamum Nalum Nalgume Tinmayum Papamum Sidainde Teyume Janmamum Maranamum Indri Terume Immayem Rama Yendram Irendaluthinale. The two sounds, two syllables, Rama. By those two syllables, Rama Yendra Irendu Eluthinale. By those two syllables of Ra and Ma, what does he says? Nanmayum Selvamum Nalum Nalgume. All the auspiciousness, all the wealth will be there with you in abundance. Nanmayum Selvamum Nalum Nalgume. All the evil, Tinmayum Papamum, all the demerits, the sins, Teyume, they will diminish. Tinmayum papamum sidaindu teyume. They will break into pieces and they will diminish. Sidaindu teyume. What a beautiful. Tinmayum papamum sidaindu teyume. Janmamum maranam. Janma means to be born. Maranamum means to die. The birth and the death cycle. Janmamum maranamum indri therume. You will transcend the need to come back again and again and be caught in this birth and death cycle. According to the Yoga Vashishta, Vashishta Rishi tells Rama that the essential disorder of psychosomatic nature is to be born again and again. To be born again and again is the Sara Adija Vyadi. And only when you have Atma Jnana will you be able to transcend it. Here, that is being referenced by Kamban. Janmamum Maranamum Indri Tirumi. By the two syllables of Rama. Nanmayum Selvamum Nalum Nalgume. Tinmayum Papamum Sidaindu Teyume. Janmamum Maranamum Indri Terume Immaye Rama 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 என்ற இரண்டெழுத்தினாலே ராமா என்ற இரண்டெழுத்தினாலே. That is the power of the Rama Nama. And that is why Tyagaraja Swamigal in his Shira Sagara says, Taraka Nama Tyagaraja Nuta Taraka Nama Tyagaraja Nuta. Protect me, Tyagaraja. Protect this Tyagaraja, Taraka Nama. One of the most amazing moments is when KJ Yesudas sings this and he goes into that high octave. Taraka Nama. It's just a state of ecstasy manifests. Rama, Rama, Rama. The Taraka Mantra that enables us to move from the imbalance to balance, from mortality to immortality. Transcendence, the raft of transcendence, to which you have to hold. You need the support because we are drowning. We are drowning in the impermanent. We are drowning in imbalance. We are drowning in the unreal. And the Taraka Nama, the Taraka Mantra enables us to stay afloat. It enables us to make that journey, to stay afloat, head above the waters. You are in the waters, but your head is above the waters. Be in the world, but don't be of the world. The capacity for the highest vairagya comes through that. Now, if we go back, you remember Shri Rama Rama Rameti Rame Rame Manorame Sahasranam Tatulyam Rama Nama Bhavanani. 3 times the Rama Nama is equal to 1000 Sahasranama. Now, there's a very interesting perspective which I came upon recently. And this perspective is that every syllable has a certain numerical power. And this is something that Swamiji used to talk a lot about, and I never really found a reference for what he was talking about. And he used to say that every name for the organs in the body is not just a name of the organ, but is actually a map. It's like you have, the GPS maps, latitude, longitude. That actually the name of the organ in Sanskrit had a numerical value that gave you the exact location of that organ in the human body. Very beautiful concept and needs to be explored. But while looking at this, I came upon this, which may be the answer, and it is called the Katapayadi Sutra or Sankhya. two versions here. Ka, ta, pa, ya, di. And what does this mean? You say, what is that? If you take the Sanskrit alphabet and you take the consonants, the vowels are taken out of the equation here. The consonants have the power because the consonants are self-sufficient. They just exist. And this is why it is said the Ra in Rama, the Ra part represents the cosmic being, the cosmos, the Brahman. And when the vowel is added to it, the A is added to it, it is the manifestation of the unmanifest. So the unmanifest is the consonant. When the vowel is added to it, it becomes manifest. So the Ra is the unmanifest Parabrahman, pure consciousness, that manifests when the vowel comes into it. When it becomes Rama, it manifests. That's why Rama is the incarnation of the divine. Now this Katapayadi Sankhya tells us that the consonants are kept in a line of tens. So the first 10, it starts with ka, kaka, gaga, nga, chacha, jaja, nga. So the first 10, 5 and 5, 5 of the ka, 5 of the cha. And they are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 as in yantra, and then the 0. Okay? Now here what happens is kaka, gaga, nga, chacha, jaja, nga. So it's the first line is ka. Tata, dadana, tata, dadana. So the ta. Ka, ta. Then papa, baba, ma. Only 5 in that line. So the pa. Ka, ta, pa. And then ya, ra, la, va, sha, sha. So ya. Ka, ta, pa, ya, adi. Adi means from that. Katapayadi. Katapayadi Sankhya. Very beautiful concept. So each of these sounds, for example, if the word ka is part of that word, it will have a numerical value of 1. Kaka, ga will have 3. Suppose you say Ganapati, that ga will have 3. So there is an amazing connection. Please Google this. There is amazing stuff out there. Katapayadi Sankhya. And this is used in the South Indian Carnatic Melakarta scheme. And by using this, they can actually, from just the name of the raga, Dhira Sankara Bharanam, you just take the first 2 syllables of the name of the raga. Dhira. Now the E is the vowel part you take out. So dha is what you need to do. And ra. Dhira. Da and ra. And those 2 numbers are then reversed. And you have the Melakarta number of that raga. 72 Melakartas are there. These are the root mother ragas from which all the other ragas come out. 72 ragas, Melakarta. 72 sounds similar? 72,000 nadis, 720,000 nadis. Yeah. 72 Melakarta are the source from which then all the ragas come out. And based on this Katapayadi Sankhya, even the notes of that raga can be derived. It is so scientific. Not just somebody said, okay, put these tunes together. No. It is divine. It is amazing insight. Now, that is a topic for another day. But one of the ways a person has explained this is, it's very nice to me. You say, is it real? Who cares? It's just so beautifully in tune. Okay, some things just make sense so much that you don't even care to do a second check on it. Okay, and it's a very beautiful one. He says, if you look in this Katapayadi Sankhya, ya, ra. Ra will have a value of 2. And papa, baba, ma. Ma has a value of 5. So how this person has interpreted? Now in the Carnatic scheme, we just take the numbers, we don't multiply them. But what this person has done is said, if you take that Ra, which is 2, Ma is 5, and you multiply, 2 into 5 is 10. Now 3 times the Rama. So 10 into 10 into 10. Simple mathematics. 10 into 10, 100, 100 into 10, 1000. Sahasranama, 1000 names. I just found this so beautiful. So beautiful. It made so much sense to me. I'm like, absolutely, it makes sense to me. It sort of hits the right spot. Where the Rama Nama is said to be 3 times the Rama Nama is said to be equal to 1000 names of the divine, because Rama is 10 into 10 into 10. I just love this. Now, as I told you, some people argue, no, Katapayadi, you just take the number, so 2 and 5 should then become 52. 52 will be Melakarta Raga. That is for the Raga system. But this is a very beautiful aspect. I think we really need to look at this, because when you go into the intricacies of the Indian culture, all ancient cultures were great. But then what has happened is all those cultures have died out. India is still a living culture. India is still a living culture. And this is why this culture has to be understood from within. This culture, the Indian culture, Sanatana Dharma, has to be understood from within. It has to be explored from within, not from outside. Everybody wants to study Indian culture, study Hinduism, study yoga from outside. That is the modern analytical approach, which is filled with experiment but no experience. It's looking from outside, and you have your own guidelines, and then you evaluate a living culture from outside with your own set of stereotypes, your own set of whatever you have already, your preconceived notions. And you find so many of these people. Recently I came across one of these type of people who was talking about how, we have studied Hinduism and we need to see what we need to throw away and what we need to keep. And I'm like, seriously, we don't need you guys from outside, having this external perspective, put Hinduism in a box and study it and say what's good or bad about it. Come into the culture, be part of the culture. It has to come from within. Yoga has to be understood from within. Indian culture from within. Hinduism from within, not from outside. People are looking in the wrong direction. Amma used to say, ignorance is the refusal to see. She said the root of ignorance is to ignore. We are ignorant because we have ignored something. That's why she said ignorance is the refusal to see. And so I made a cartoon where there's a guy on one of those one palm tree islands, and there's a ship on the other side, and he's looking in the wrong. He's looking in this direction. The ship that is there to save him is right behind him, and he is not turned in the right direction. If you are looking in the wrong direction, you will miss the sunrise. If you're facing west, you miss the sunrise. And then you say, there's no sunrise today. Yeah, you have been looking in the wrong direction. And most of these modern scholars, be it of India, all these Indologists, oh my God, seriously, want to understand India from outside. Sorry, you cannot do it. You have to go inside, and from inside you have to explore and understand. A culture can only be understood from inside, not from outside. Now, of course, when you come inside the culture, you may lose a bit of your rationality. You may lose this double-blind clinical trial type of, experimental validity. You lose a bit of that, and that's where anthropology, comes across it. The anthropology has to come into the culture. But then, what happens when you come into the culture, you start to see it so differently that then people outside it say, oh, you have become biased. You have become an Indophile. Hinduphile, Indophile, Yogaphile. They would like it to be phobe. If you are phobe, you are very academic. But if you're full, oh my God, you'll be labeled something else. We need to understand the culture from within. It's a living culture. And that is why this comes into every aspect of culture. Now, I want to end with a humorous story of Lord Rama. Lord Rama had, got down to Rameshwaram, and they had to get over to Lanka, where Sita Devi was held captive. And they said, well, we have to build a bridge to get across. So Nala and Nil, Null and Nil, the null hypothesis, nil hypothesis maybe. Nala and Nila, these were the architects of the Vanara Sena. Recently, a few years ago, I remember there's this controversy over Rama Setu, this bridge, which they like to call Adam's Bridge. And we had a prominent politician say, oh, if Rama built the bridge, which engineering college did he get his degree from? They try to be funny and intelligent and come out, the other end of the spectrum. Yeah, pyramids were built by Egyptian engineers who had a degree from IIT Kanpur. See, knowledge has always been there, and those people had better knowledge. The pyramids are still standing. The ancient Indian temples are still standing. The modern constructions don't last a decade and they collapse and kill people. All the time you hear of these stories of buildings collapsing and dozens of people dying. When was the bridge built? 2 years ago. 5 years ago. When was the building built? 10 years ago. We are talking of thousands of years and they are staying because those people had jnana and prajna, not just vidya. So anyway, they are building this bridge and, if you throw a rock in the water, it will sink. So they said what to do. Well, they got an agreement with Varuna Deva that if Rama, Sri Ram, the Rama Nama is written on the rock will float. And to this day, if you go down to Rameshwaram, they have floating rocks. It's a beautiful phenomenon they have there. So, what would happen is all the Vanara Sena, they will come, and what they will do is that they will take a rock, write Sri Ram on it and put it in the water and the rock will float, and they started to build this bridge. And the gaps were filled by the little squirrels who came around bringing all the sand with it and putting it there and getting blessed by Rama with the 3 stripes. Now Lord Rama was watching this and he was enjoying. He said, wow, beautiful bridge being built. And suddenly he had a thought. See, he is human after all. Even if he is divine, he is in human form. He had a thought. Oh, they are writing my name on it. They are writing my name on it and the rocks are floating. This is so wonderful. So he takes a rock and without writing Sri Ram puts it in the water. Guess what happens? Rock sinks. Gravity. I love this story. Because Lord Rama, the divine in human form, the Purusha Uttama, Maryada Purushottama, takes the rock, puts it in the water and boom, plonk, sinks to the bottom. Because it was not Rama as the personality, it was the Rama as the mantra that had the power. The culture is teaching us that bigger than you is the power of the mantra of your name. The Nama is having a bigger significance than you. We have people who the moment they become a director, managing director, the president, the vice chancellor, the head of the department, they think, oh, me. You have that power because of that title. You have the power because you are vice chancellor, president, head of the department, director, acharya, yogacharya, guru. Guru has a power because of the power of the Nama Guru, not because of you. The moment you think, oh, I am the Guru, I have the power, plonk, you sink to the bottom of consciousness. And that is why the power of the mantra, Rama, enables us to have that raft, float. Raft, float, Rama, rocks, even rocks float. Even rocks which have the least amount of consciousness and prana Even the rocks which have the least amount of prana and consciousness can float by the power of the Taraka Mantra Rama. Now Brahmanamji, Rama is Sanskrit. Ram is Hindi. And the Sanskrit, it has a short ma. There is an a as part of that ma. But in Hindi, if that extra line is not put, it is considered as im. And so when people who have learned Hindi, who speak Hindi, who belong to a culture where Hindi is the natural language, when they look at Sanskrit, they start to read Sanskrit from a Hindi perspective. And so Rama, it's not Rama, that's different. It's not Rama, it's Rama. That ma, it's like yoga. Yoga, it's not yoga. Yoga is the Hindi version of the Sanskrit term yoga. Of course, when we went to the West, it became yoga, yoga, asana, asana. But it becomes asan from the Hindi perspective. So, Rama is actually correct. Now, when it comes to South India, we add a tail to it. Raman, we add a to it. Sri Raman, Jaya Raman, you'll find name. Raman is the found here. Yoga, Yoga. Rama, Ram. Krishna, Krishan. Asana, Asan. Yama, Yam. Niyama, Niyam. So this is a linguistic perspective. So when people who have a certain linguistic perspective look at it, they are going to read it in that. But it is Rama. So Rama Nama, the Taraka Mantra, is one of balance, one of stability, one of equanimity. And by chanting it, we try to elevate our mundane consciousness to that level of consciousness of Sthita Prajna, Samabhava, Samatvam. And that is why Lord Rama had Samatvam. He took as a brother, not just his own brothers, 3 other brothers, Bharata, Shatrughna and Lakshmana, but also Guha. Guha who was a ferryman, a boatman. He takes as another brother Sugriva from the Vanara community. And then he even takes Vibhishana from the Asura community as his brother. He was the embodiment of Samatvam, equanimity, who could perceive all beings as one. When we chant this, we start to move from duality and division into a state of oneness. Rama enables us to come, 2 syllables become one. The division becomes one. And the pieces are put together. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Shri Ram, Jaya Ram, Jaya Jaya Ram, Om. 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 Jaya Jaya Ram, Jaya Jaya Ram, Om. I close here today and see you next week, where we have our Silver Jubilee 50th session coming up. And thank you for being on the other side of the screen so that I have an opportunity to explore my own consciousness. And whenever I'm with you, I'm exploring my consciousness and finding these parts that otherwise would not have come up into my consciousness. So thank you for being a vehicle, a catalyst for this type of exploration to happen within me. And when it benefits you also, I think that's a twin benefit. I benefit you, you benefit me. And what a beautiful, mutually symbiotic relationship this can be. May we all be blessed to be the best version of ourselves. Dhanyavadaha. Thank you, Danke, Mercy, Nandri, Vanakkam.